Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Happy New Year 2021. Happy New Year, Mr. Aaron Radcliffe. How are you doing,
Happy
sir?
New Year to you, Mr. Rafie.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting few weeks, let's put it that way. Welcome to the very first episode of the First Page Digital, Not Another Marketing Podcast of 2021. We figured we were going to try and keep this one nice, wholesome, and simple, but events of the last few days around the world have been interesting and have really set the tone for what is going to be a pretty amazing year in more ways than one. And I use the word amazing here in a very, very loose sense of the word.
I saw what you did there.
Yeah, I did. Come on, angel of words. That's your name that you gave me. Remember that? Yeah, I'll always
deservingly so.
Yeah. So, for those of you that are tuning in, we were going to turn this into our bold predictions for 2021. Although I feel that in the context of what's been happening, maybe the predictions are not going to be as bold as they might have been, right? Aaron, how do you feel about 2021, just in general, before we dig into the details?
I'm excited, man. I mean, it's been an interesting start. Not ideal in some ways, but I'm an endlessly optimistic person, and I think moving forward, this is going to be an absolutely phenomenal year.
Phenomenal, yeah. That could be a word that could be a good phenomenal or a bad phenomenal, right?
I meant it in a good way, okay? How about you, Rafie? You don't seem to have the same dose of optimism that I do.
No, I don't. I really, really don't. And I guess when we were discussing what our predictions would be, right, for the upcoming year, I realized mine were pretty negative. I think you took a slightly more positive tone to it, but like I mean I'm looking at because we're going to be sharing our top 10 predictions for 2021 right now, and I'm looking at mine and thinking, man, I have absolutely no faith in the world around us.
But you know what, Rafie, that's why we're such a good team. It's like You bring a little bit of dose of the cynicism. I'm a little more optimistic. You're the peanut butter to my jelly.
Okay, I'll go with that. I'll go with the peanut butter and jelly analogy. All right, so let's kick it off. Shall we? Top 10 predictions for 2021. We're ready to go on this?
Hell yeah, man. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. My first prediction will be, it's a sad one, and I think it's reflective of the reality. The pandemic is here to stay. It's not going anywhere, no matter how many people we vaccinate, no matter how many people we manage to inoculate against the virus and everything. The pandemic is here to stay. It's going to be something that we're going to need to get like yearly vaccinations for, like the flu. And it's just, it's going to be tough as well to get people vaccinated, simply because of the flood of disinformation and misinformation about what, COVID-19 is and what the vaccinations are going to, supposed to do. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, man. Like that's my first big prediction for 2021. It's not going away.
I can't argue with any points that you brought up. By no means do I want to brand myself as a pandemic expert, because I'm not. But it doesn't seem like our hopes and dreams of this thing quietly fading into the horizon in early 2021 are going to happen. We're in this for a bit longer, that's for sure.
Yeah, and there are people protesting against the vaccines. There's like a lot of stuff happening. There are more lockdowns happening everywhere. Some governments have declared like national emergencies just so that they can try and get a grip on this. So, yeah, I just don't think even if everybody gets vaccinated, the pandemic in some shape or form is going to be with us for years to come, not just 2021. Yeah.
Thanks for starting the predictions on such a positive note, Raf. Really appreciate that.
Well, I do have another prediction. My second prediction for 2021.
This is number 2, right?
Yeah, this is number 2. This could be taken positively. I think the work from home revolution is here to stay as well. Because, there's no guarantee in public safety anymore. There's there's a very low probability that health officials around the world will declare that it's safe for us to mingle that we used to and be in the same closed spaces that we used to be in, right? But it also means that, that the work from home ethic or the work from home revolution, I think is definitely here to stay. And it's going to stay beyond 2021 as well. Like people will be given the choice of whether they want to go to an office or not, or whether they want to work from home. And hopefully this will then become the Trojan horse that changes how we look at work culture everywhere around the world. What do you think?
This is a prediction that I'm completely in support of. I mean, it definitely seems like a matter of inevitability that we're going down this road. Obviously, it's been heightened and it's been an exponential rise because of the pandemic. And it's a prediction that I hope will happen. Also, I want to be very clear about that. Like, I'm predicting this and I'm agreeing with your prediction because I want it to happen. I think in a world where we have the choice to work from home or to go into the office, like that's an ideal world to live in. And if we can get to that point in 2021, we might look at this as a turning point as to where office time is optional. And that'll be pretty cool.
Awesome. All right. So, okay. You know what? I could just doom and gloom my way through these predictions, but you got to hit me with one, man. Come on. What you got?
Okay.
For me?
Yeah. All right. So let's start. Prediction number 3. My prediction is this one's a bit more of a business/marketing type prediction. I think that 2021 will be the year where Google starts to lose some of its search market share. Boom. I want to clarify. I'm not saying that this is the year that Google is going to lose its monopoly or lose its domination. That ain't going to happen for a long time. Pulling up some of my stats right here. Google currently has a 91% market share globally of search. And the next biggest competitor is Bing at 2.75%. So the disparity is astronomical. Also, those statistics don't take into consideration Baidu, just as clarification. But regardless, outside of mainland China, Google beyond dominates. But I think that domination is short-lived, that at some point the market will correct itself. And I think that this is the year that we'll remember where that shift started to take place. For a few reasons. You look at search engines like DuckDuckGo that are really starting to grow in popularity. DuckDuckGo is currently getting 1 billion searches a month. Granted, it only has 1.35% of market share in the US, but still, like, it's growing, okay? And one company I want you guys to keep an eye out for is Neeva. Neeva is run by an ex-VP of Google, and he started his own search engine company, which is based on no ads, no selling of your data, but for a monthly subscription. What that subscription will cost, we don't know. If the product is any good, I'm not sure, but it seems like a really interesting disruptor, especially in a time where people are getting more and more concerned with online safety. But what's tying it all together is that reportedly, Apple looks like it will be launching its first search engine as well. They had a deal with Google to be the primary search engine, Google on Apple phones, for anywhere between $8 to $12 billion a year. That deal looks like it's about to end. Apple looks primed to make its first entrance into the search engine market, and given their dominance, given the fact that so many people own iPhones, that could give them an immediate head start into this. So I don't think it's the year that Google loses its dominance, but I think that it's where we'll remember, oh, this is where it started to kind of start happening.
Oh, okay.
What do you think?
No, I mean, I actually think competition in this space would be a good thing either way, right? Regardless of where
me too. I'm so in support of it. It's so overdue.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I have very complicated, mostly negative feelings about Apple, but if anyone has the resources to take Google on in the search game, it is most likely going to be them, because Microsoft had their chance with Bing and they still have that chance, but I don't know. I've tried using Bing. I do not like it, but then that's just my personal inclination, you know. So any competition in this space is probably a good thing, because you know, you can't rely on Google. I mean, Google tends to be able to innovate on their own, even in the absence of competition, right? But having actual competition would probably make them innovate even more. And in the end, it's people like you and me and everybody else on the planet that wins. So
totally, man. 100% agree. And then with that, I'll jump into my next prediction, prediction number 4, kind of within the umbrella of marketing. And this one's a little bit more of a bold prediction. I've crunched the numbers. I'm not sure if it's possible, but I think that it could happen. And I think that TikTok has a chance to overtake Instagram for active monthly users.
Ooh.
If
bring in the spice there, Radcliffe.
Yeah, that's what I do best. Spicy rad over here, okay? TikTok's growth has been absolutely exponential over the past year. It is the #1 most downloaded app worldwide in 2020, with over 850 million downloads. It's still in the hierarchy of social media in terms of active monthly users.
Yeah.
A little bit lower down. Actually, I'm curious, Rafie, what do you think are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 apps in front of TikTok? Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just give me a few of them.
Okay, well, we know Instagram's in front, right?
Yes.
Ooh, Facebook?
Yes.
Okay. Twitter?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Okay. YouTube?
Yes.
Okay. So we have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, but not Twitter. Now
the other three are interesting because they're not social media platforms. I'll just go ahead and I'll break it for you.
Go on.
So WhatsApp, which is not really social media, but it is counted in this category.
Yeah.
Then Facebook Messenger, then WeChat. So what's interesting is that TikTok currently has 700 million monthly active users. Instagram has 1.16 billion monthly active users, but I think there's a chance that TikTok can close that gap, especially as Instagram plateaus. Facebook is having more legal issues with monopolies across the world. They might get broken up. I think that as Facebook faces internal and external consternation, that TikTok could really capitalize upon the opportunity and be the new it in social media.
We'll see. Yeah, as somebody who spends a lot of time on TikTok and because my daughter, loves just sending me TikTok videos and, some of them are really cute. There was actually an interesting story about how TikTok facilitated the 3D printing of a certain piece of medical. I don't remember the exact story, but there's so many of these amazing little stories that are coming out from TikTok that is just, and you used to hear these stories about the other social networks, when they're in these stages where people genuinely use these things for far more positive means than what's happening right now with most social media networks. And I just, I want that prediction to come true simply because I just love hearing all these positive stories that come out of it. So yeah, I'm gonna
100%, man.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
All right,
keeping the ball rolling. My prediction number 5 for the podcast.
Is this another tech one?
It is. It's a business tech marketing kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that as to where TikTok is on the up and up and looking at a bright 2021, I think our friends at Zoom might be in a little bit of trouble. Never want to say that I'm a business expert by any stretch, but just sort of reading the news, seeing what's happening, and also seeing consumption patterns. Zoom had possibly the biggest year of 2020. I mean,
yeah.
It's the 5th most downloaded app worldwide of the year, and quarter 4 of 2019 versus quarter 4 of 2020, they made 4.5 times more income. So unbelievable growth. I wonder, though, is it substantial and is it sustainable?
Yeah.
Is it sustainable is what I was, because you're starting to see more of the big players come into this space. Microsoft, Google. There's rumors of an Apple competitor. There's rumors of a Slack competitor. So this is getting more crowded. Zoom got that initial head start, which is absolutely going to help them maintain their position, or at least it could help them. But I think that they're going to have some problems, especially as coronavirus starts to hopefully start to settle down, some sort of normalcy returns. A lot more people will be returning to their offices regardless of whether we want work from home or not.
Yeah.
And that could really sort of dent Zoom's growth potential, and they're going against some really big players. Do you like using Zoom?
I don't know. I kind of didn't really have an opinion of it because people were just using it because it was kind of like the default at some point, right? And I'll Zoom you or I'll send you a Zoom link, and it just entered the lexicon almost.
And it's funny, actually. I think that's Zoom's biggest point of differentiation is that word. Their branding is so good.
Yeah.
Zoom, because it's this verb. It's like, hey, I'll Zoom you, and it's so brandable.
Yeah.
It's like Airbnb almost. Like you don't say, hey, I got an apartment, I got an Airbnb somewhere, right? So that branding is really going to help them. But I think they got some tough times ahead.
Yeah, I mean, once Microsoft and Apple get their shit together and they start coming up with more fully featured solutions. Right, then we'll see. I do agree with you that there's going to be a dent. I'm not sure whether it's as big a dent as you're predicting it's going to be, right? I still think that they are at that point where they've become a verb, right? So I'll Zoom you, and oh, can you Zoom me later, and stuff like that. Much like how Google is, you don't search for something on the internet anymore. You Google it, right? And the 100%. Same thing is happening with Zoom. So I think that they're going to be at that point where it's they might not have as big of a share as they did before. I don't think we're going to see 91% dominance in the telemarketing space for Zoom like Google has in search, for example, right? But, I do think they're still going to be thereabouts. Yeah, come the end of 2021.
Rafie, I just made a few predictions. Give me one from you.
We mentioned Google. right? And we mentioned social media networks, and I mentioned Twitter earlier, right? Because of something that happened recently to a certain political figure who has had his Twitter.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
His Twitter megaphone has been taken away from him, right? So this is a two-parter, right? This prediction, right? So the first part to this prediction is that we are going to have worldwide, we are going to have a colossal disagreement on the definition of free speech or freedom of speech, right? I think like we've been getting to this point where, where people say that politically on the left, they just want to censor all speech, and then politically on the right, they don't want any speech to be censored at all, right? And we have allowed ourselves to be polarized politically for so long all over the world to the point where we can't even agree on what is that actual definition of free speech, because everybody's sort of like gone into their safe spaces and live that way, right? So for me, the big thing that's going to happen is that there will be an actual reckoning worldwide, right? Especially in places like the United States, maybe to a smaller degree in other democracies around the world, like the UK, in the EU and stuff like that, possibly even in our part of the world here in Southeast Asia, right? Like what does free speech actually mean, and we're going to see a million different definitions of what that word is going to be. We're going to continue, and it's going to be one of the big things that we're going to be arguing about throughout the entire year.
I think this is a really, really important prediction because I couldn't agree with you more. And I've been thinking a lot about this recently too, and I always just thought freedom of speech was infinitely scalable, and it seems like it would just be so easy to scale it. The more platforms, just more freedom of speech. It's so easy, and it turns out that is not the case whatsoever. I think some big conversations are going to be happening in the next year about this. So good prediction. Yeah. How does that tie into part 2 with this?
The second part is the scrutiny that's going to be given to tech companies and their role in facilitating or censoring free speech, right?
For sure, that makes sense. It ties right in.
Yeah, because like we look at the outrage from certain, sections of the political spectrum as to what happened to a certain political figure when his Twitter megaphone was taken away, right? And them screaming, "Oh, this is censoring of free speech," right? Which then plays into what exactly is a definition of free speech and who gets to regulate it and who doesn't, right? That's another conversation to have. Then who gets to define that? And then how is that then enforced on these tech companies? Because as private corporations, they don't have the same restrictions, like in the First Amendment, for example, in the U.S. Constitution, where the government can't stop you from saying anything and they can't arrest you for it, right? But a private company doesn't have that particular restriction placed upon it, right? They're not. What's the word I'm looking for? I forgot the word. They're not obligated to give everybody a platform, right? Whereas
it's true.
Whereas the governments are, right? They're obligated to give you a platform so that you'll be able to tell them what you really think about them, And so we'll have I especially with a Democratic administration coming into power in the U.S. soon, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny, not just in the U.S., but that's going to have a domino effect all over the world, examining what role does Facebook play in freedom of speech? What role does Instagram play? TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all of these platforms, what role do they have to play in freedom of speech, in enforcing policies against hate speech? Do they deplatform, who they can or they should not, who they can or cannot deplatform? This is like tech companies are going to be under the microscope more than ever. Definitely. That's what I see.
It's going to be such a big conversation. Yeah. I'm nervous for it, to be honest, but it seems like it's a matter of inevitability. So let's strap in and talk about it, right? Because we got to figure some shit out.
And you know what? Like my personal definition of free speech is that you can say anything you want as long as it doesn't perpetuate harm on other people, right? Or in other groups. Or you don't incite violence and hate. That's like my definition of it, and I don't think being offended or being insulted covers that, but other people might not necessarily agree with that, and
Rafie, I like your breakdown. I'd vote for you. If you run for office, you have my vote.
Well, I can't run in Singapore just yet, but who knows? Yeah. But that's how I would generally look at free speech, right? It's just, you can insult me, you can tell me that I have like shit hair or something and all that, and I won't take you to court over it, right? Because I'm offended, but
nobody could ever say that about your hair. It's beautiful.
Yeah, no.
Like,
I just threw that out. I was just fishing, thank you so much. But it's not something that I feel is worthy of prosecution on other people. My rights have not been harmed. No one is gonna behead me for having this particular hairstyle, right? But then I think that's where the conversation then changes for a lot of people, where it's like, if what then is freedom of speech? What constitutes offense, what constitutes harm, and who should be the gatekeepers of those definitions, right? Tech companies, governments, whatever. Huge conversations going to be happening in 2021.
For sure, man.
So yeah. And actually, I'll just throw in one more tech company prediction.
You got last prediction?
Yeah. My prediction number 8. This is my last one, right? This is my last prediction. I think that there's going to be a huge shift in communications apps, right? I mean, like, for the longest time, as if you shared, right, WhatsApp is the top communication app, right, in the world right now that everybody uses, right?
No question.
Yeah, but then there are concerns because they're changing their terms of service, regarding sharing of data with their parent company, Facebook, right? And I honestly think that they're gonna lose, lose their dominant position in the market, like maybe Zoom might with teleconferencing. But I do think they're going to lose significant market share to apps like Signal. They're going to use market share to apps like Telegram, especially, right? And I do think that, because I know plenty of businesses who run their groups through WhatsApp and everything, that they're going to move away from it with all of the huge privacy concerns that they're going to have. And I do think WhatsApp is going to lose significant market share this year, for sure.
It's so interesting because I adore the product of WhatsApp. It is such an amazing user experience, like just as in terms of a product. And I don't like Telegram or any other messaging apps. I've used them all. But the data concerns, the privacy concerns are a real thing, and it could really put a dent in there. Cool prediction. I like that one.
Yeah. All right. So you know what? Okay, I'm done with my predictions, right? I'm going to give you the final two. Radcliffe, take it away. Hit me with something.
I got 2 left. All right. I got 2 left. Let me just warm up real fast.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready. So prediction number 9 for the podcast. I think that this is actually a pretty safe prediction. That the movement towards environmentalism, from a branding perspective, with businesses supporting eco-friendly products, is only going to increase in just like tenfold.
Yeah.
I think that, first of all, thank God, hallelujah. It's about damn time.
Yeah.
But you're really seeing a huge shift in the way that businesses interact with their customers, and you're really seeing an enormous shift in the way that what people are expecting from their brands in terms of transparency, in terms of supporting the causes that they believe in. And for me, like, the simplest thing you can do is just try and figure out ways to hurt the environment less, with whatever you do. And we're seeing that already with H&M Conscious, Clarins, really taking a focus on like organic and like sustainably sourced products. Patagonia, dude, do you follow Patagonia on Instagram?
I know that it's a landmass from ancient times.
No, the active gear brand.
Oh, okay,
you know them?
Okay. Yeah. I know the geography, not the branding.
To anybody who's listening to this podcast, follow Patagonia on Instagram. They're an incredible travel gear, like a hiking gear company, and their brand tone and mission is 100% about being eco-friendly, about saving the planet, about using recycled materials, and you're just seeing it across the board. So I think that trend is only going to continue, and I think it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, cool. I mean, Aki, I hope that happens as well, because we've been hearing plenty of climate change experts throughout the years telling us that we are very close to the point of no return. And there are some that actually think we are past the point of no return in terms of like, the resource consumption and just damage that we're doing to the environment and whatnot. And I just hope that, honestly, that the rest of the world sits up, pays attention, and not just brands, like just, not just normal people as well, because we can do all that we can as consumers to try and make ethical buying choices, right? But ultimately, the majority of pollution is still done by like huge major corporations, not like your man in the street, right? And, I just hope that brands go into this not just to try and make a quick buck, right? Because, it's de rigueur, it's like in trend for them to hop on the green bandwagon, but for them to actually believe in their corporate social responsibility to have a more sustainable way of living for the rest of us. So I think
for sure, man. But even if the brands are doing it just to be cool and to greenwash themselves, even then it's still preferable to the alternative.
Yeah.
Obviously, I want all these brands to believe it from the bottom of their hearts, but even just the trend of greenwashing is still kind of good in itself, as long as brands aren't like hiding things, like they're actually taking part in this. But it's just it's a movement for the better, and whether or not brands actually believe in it, as long as they're on the right path, I think that's really good news in itself.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah.
Rafie, I got one more prediction.
Okay. All right. Hit me.
And it's not really a prediction. It's just something that I'm going to really keep my eye on over 2021, and that's the streaming wars. Seeing what's happening between Netflix, Disney, Hulu, Amazon Prime, HBO right now. It's just like it is a war. It is an absolute war where they are all vying for market share. They are all investing billions of dollars into original content, and it's just going to be fascinating to see what happens next, and especially fascinating because Peacock is really trying to get in there now. I don't think it's going to go very well for Peacock. I don't think that they have an interesting enough of a product and an interesting enough of a catalog to rationalize that cost. But then you have a company that we were talking about the other day, Roku. Yeah. Roku just spent $100 million on Quibi's entire library, which laugh at Quibi if you want, because it's kind of funny. But that aside, they had some really good quality content. There was some interesting shows there with some real star power. So now you got these other two coming into the mix, and it's like, Hulu is owned by Disney. There's rumors that Hulu actually might just get axed and they'll just throw everything on Disney Plus to consolidate. That would be really fascinating. That could then double Disney's power.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, what's Spotify going to do? Are they going to start going into video a little bit? Because I think that would be a really smart move on their part, but it doesn't seem like they are, but people are saying it. I just think that the entire streaming wars thing, and then are sports going to start making the transition? There's rumor that Netflix might start getting contracts to have live sporting events and stuff. So just the whole streaming wars stratosphere is going to be a wild ride. What do you think?
Okay. I do think Spotify is going to go into video.
They have to, right? They're going to.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, again, they've already started introducing video on select artists on the Spotify app, right? Like snippets of music videos or just full music videos like on the app already, right? So that means it's already taking up that data bandwidth anyway. They're and when you mentioned Roku, interestingly, right? I think I shared this with you as well the other day when we were discussing this, that Roku actually hired the former VP of Siri from Apple. Right?
Yes. You talked about that.
Yeah, and he's joined Roku as their VP of advanced product development. So they've clearly, this guy probably had insight into what Apple was doing with Apple TV and everything and all that, to try and integrate Siri into all of the Apple ecosystem. So he had visibility on the entire Apple ecosystem, and he's bringing that with him to Roku, and it's just,
it's a really interesting company to watch. Really interesting company.
Yeah, I actually have a Roku. I love a Roku, like user interface, easy to use, everything much better than some of the other streaming solutions that I've used before. So
for sure.
I think and you haven't even mentioned all the smaller players as well. People like CBS All Access, for example, haven't mentioned not even the Asian ones like View or even in Malaysia, you've got companies like iFlix as well, like local streaming options, right? I know for a fact that some Japanese media companies as well are realizing that they've got this huge backlog of like 30 to 40 years of amazing content, like in Japanese that hasn't been really marketed properly to the Western market, because they saw what happened with Korean dramas and they're like, oh, we want a piece of that pie as well. Yeah. There's so many things that are going to be happening in the streaming space. It's going to be head spinning.
It really is, man. I'm really excited. I think it's fascinating to see. It's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah, but I do have like a small sad like prediction that will go with the whole streaming wars thing, and I do think, and this is sort of like a bonus prediction actually, right, on top of everything else, I do think we're going to see closures of like major cinema chains for sure. That's just going to be that's just going to be a natural consequence of the streaming wars.
It really is, yes. With HBO's recent announcement, Warner Brothers' recent announcement and then Netflix announced that they're going to release 71 movies on Netflix next year.
Yeah.
For those doing the math out there, that's more than a movie a week. So it's just not looking good for movie theaters.
But you know what? In a way, it's like, since we're all going to be stuck at home for most of the year before, we all get vaccinated or whatever, right? Maybe it is a good thing, but also a sad thing. I guess I was hoping we could end this on a bit more of a positive note, but I don't think we can. It's going to be a tough year. It's going to be a challenging year. Yeah, I guess that's it. That's our top 10 predictions for 2021. Right?
Yeah, we got some pretty good ones in there. I'm really excited to listen to this episode a year from now and listen to all the shit that we got wrong, because I'm sure there'll be plenty. But it was fun to do. So thanks for putting this together.
Yeah, cheers. So Aaron, thank you for offering your insight as always. And anything else you want to add before we adjourn?
No closing notes, man. Let's kick off 2021 with a bang. And thanks to everybody who's listening to the podcast. We've got a lot more great episodes planned for you this year. I predict, Rafie, that you and I will make more awesome podcasts this year. How about that for a prediction?
And you know what? That is a positive prediction for us to end on, and I will take it.
Perfect.
All right. Cheers, Aaron. Thank you very much. See you and have a great 2020.
Thanks so much, Rafie. All right. Bye.